Time for Thunder Cover with NewsOK.com and the Oklahoman's Darnell Mayberry. Darnell, that was, I'll tell you what, the Game 6, the fourth quarter and overtime of Game 6, and then Game 7, that's what you want to see as a fan of basketball, man. That was highly contested. That was a close contest, and ultimately the LeBron James and the Miami Heat win the thing, but that was a lot of fun to watch.
A great game, great season by the Heat, a great season by the Spurs. Unfortunate that the one team had to lose. We're kind of waiting for overtime again in Game 7. That's how great of a game it was. You just kind of felt like that one needed an extra period or two. So it was a heck of a ball game.
Biggest surprise coming out of Game 7, was it that Tim Duncan missed that routine shot that he makes 9 out of 10, or was it that LeBron James ended up being so deadly from mid-range and long-range shooting jump shots?
Well, I'm going to go with Tim Duncan because it was a bunny. He had Shane Battier on him, and you're right. It's a shot that he makes 9 out of 10 times. So for those reasons, I'm going to say I was more surprised by Duncan's miss. It was a pivotal moment in the game. He could have tied it. LeBron, I didn't like it. I love the Spurs strategy, but you can't give a great player like LeBron James or anyone that's a great player the same defense, the same steady dose of defensive schemes for 48 minutes. And that's exactly what the Spurs did, not just for 48 minutes of Game 7, but throughout the whole series. So eventually he was going to start knocking down some shots, and that's what we saw starting in that third quarter, really.
Having said that, Greg Popovich, is questionable not having Tim Duncan on the floor at critical times in Game 6, and no Tony Parker there at the end of Game 6 or Game 7. You talk about not changing up your strategy defensively. Did Greg Popovich, how much is he to blame ultimately for this series loss to the Miami Heat?
He's not totally at fault, but he does share the blame. He didn't miss those free throws in Game 6. That was Kawhi Leonard and Manu Ginobili. He didn't miss that bunny. That was Tim Duncan in Game 7. I think there was a lot of blame to go around, but Greg Popovich not putting Duncan in for that second offensive rebound, especially in Game 6, and then not having Tony Parker on the floor to initiate some kind of offense right after LeBron's big bucket with 28 seconds left. So I don't understand why Tony Parker wasn't in the game, and I never heard anybody ask Greg Popovich why he wasn't in the game. So to this day, I'm still missed by that.
That's what I can't understand is that we're talking about a guy, Tony Parker, who, people said if he hadn't been injured and missed those games this year, he's a viable, a top 3 MVP candidate for this season. He is the face. He's the new guy. He's taken over the torch there in San Antonio as the premier player. And they're in crunch time, when your back's up against the wall, Game 6, Game 7, when you need a bucket, he's on the bench. I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, you can't in one breath or one day call this guy the best point guard in the league, and then in the next game sit him out in a crucial possession like that. The only thing that I would be able to excuse that move would be if Tony Parker's hamstring was worse than he let on throughout that series. If that hamstring was bothering him and he just couldn't go, then maybe I could give him a pass, Greg Popovich. But he put Tony Parker right back in after that turnover by Ginobili. So obviously it wasn't bothering him that much if he could come right back in the game. So I felt like he had to be in that game at that moment.
Question for you, Darnell. We've seen today it came out that Danny Green was out celebrating and stopped out over at wherever the Heat had their big championship celebration going on. You have a problem with that?
Tell me he was not. Of all people, you telling me Danny Green was out celebrating?
Danny Green went to the Heat, had a big celebration after the game at a club in Miami, and Danny Green went to the celebration. He partied to the wee hours of the night with the Miami Heat. Got
pictures of him there with LeBron James.
Wow. First I heard of it, guys. That's a big no-no. You cannot do that. You might be able to go out and go to a party, but you can't go to the LeBron James and the Miami Heat's party and celebrate with those guys, especially when you're Danny Green and you just laid the egg that he laid. He was a no-show, and to his credit, he took it on the chin after the game and said that he let his teammates down, he let his coaches down. But you can't go out and party with LeBron James and the Miami Heat. That's a big no-no.
Doesn't matter if you were teammates in Cleveland. Just doesn't. That's stepping over the line. I'm sure people in San Antonio, the fan base, not very happy with Mr. Danny Green, not only from his performance in Game 6 and Game 7. It's funny, we were talking, this was a guy that Ray Allen doesn't make that shot. He, even with the bad game in Game 6, he's probably the series MVP. He's, they're carrying him around in San Antonio as a hero. Now he's going to be hated. Funny how things change so quickly. Let's talk quickly LeBron James, Darnell, 37 and 12, what he did in that fourth quarter of Game 6, what he was able to do last night. He had the signature shot there in a 2-point game after Tim Duncan misses the bunny. LeBron hits the pull-up jumper, extends the lead to 4, then gets a steal, knocks down a couple of free throws. What ultimately did last night in this series do for LeBron James' legacy?
Well, I never really got caught up in all the legacy talk with LeBron James. Not just yet. The guy's 28 years old. Even if he lost this series, even if he lost in Game 6 and bowed out to the Spurs again, he still would have had plenty of time left in his career to really define his legacy. And we saw him last night basically take the bull by the horns and really shape exactly what his legacy, help shape exactly what his legacy will be. So with that being said, that's exactly what he did last night. I mean, he took control of his legacy, and he basically said, this is the way I'm about to start the prime of my career, and I'm about to start racking up championships. And I think that went a long way in putting him in that elite category now that he has back-to-back championships.
No doubt about it. This is Thunder Cover with NewsOK.com and the Oklahomans. Darnell Mayberry. We'll talk more when we get back. 18 minutes past the hour, and welcome back. Friday, June 21, taking you to your weekend. Dusty Dvorak, Teddy Lehman, your host, Drake Dykin, back in studio. Let's get back to talking some hoops with this is Thundercover with NewsOK.com and the Oklahomans, Darnell Mayberry. Darnell, as we look at this, this series, what is going to have an implication on the big three of either the Miami Heat or the San Antonio Spurs, possibly both. If you're the Miami Heat right now, if you're that ownership, that management group, and you're sitting here, you've been to 3 straight NBA Finals, exactly what you put this team together for. You've won 2 in a row with back-to-back championships. What do you do with Chris Bosh? Last night, 0 points. And as we've seen throughout these playoffs, at times, very pedestrian, doesn't necessarily have his stamp on this team. And as you look at that Eastern Conference with the bigs and Roy Hibbert, what Chicago brings with their physical, aggressive style nature, if you're the Miami Heat, do you stand pat? Do you try to make it 3 straight, or do you make a move and try to deal Bosh?
I make a move, and I trade Chris Bosh because, as you saw, he's just not a great fit. He does some good things defensively and some of the, intangibles, with little things that, don't show up in the box score. But for the most part, he's taking up too much of their cap room, and I think if they can trade him, unload him to a team with cap space, and basically take nothing back but draft picks in return, I think that'll give them more flexibility going forward to try to restructure that team and rebuild it a little bit. So I'd part ways with him. I thank him for his service, but I'd say good luck elsewhere.
How about San Antonio? The big three that's been there for so long, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Ginobili. Ginobili hasn't been himself lately, kind of hinting that this may be it for him here in the last couple of days. What's San Antonio look like post Manu Ginobili if that happens?
I can't imagine Manu going out like he did. I can't imagine him retiring and calling it a career after the series that he just had, knowing that he, along with Danny Green and some others, really cost the Spurs a shot at their 5th championship. So I just don't see him retiring.
What about the rest of them? What about Greg Popovich? I mean, do you expect this San Antonio Spurs team to come back intact? And if you can get Manu for cheaper, is making 13 this year as a free agent next year, you get him on the cheap, maybe you add a piece or two. Is this San Antonio Spurs team, is there still fight left in this dog? Are they a legitimate contender to come back and compete for the Western Conference next year?
Yeah, I don't see why not. You can see that they still have that experience and that championship pedigree. They know how to play, and they still got great chemistry with each other. I think they'll be fine as long as they can avoid the injury bug. They did a pretty good job of it this season of not letting that creep in or not being hampered by that, I should say. But for the most part, I think they can continue to compete, especially when you look at how in flux the Western Conference is right now. Who knows what the Lakers are going to look like? Who knows what Houston's going to look like? I think you got some up-and-coming teams like Minnesota and Portland, but I don't think they're championship caliber just yet. So I think it's still the Spurs and the Thunder at this point at least.
Darnell, what do you think about this championship run by Miami? You know, they've gone back-to-back. This is their third year in the finals. A lot of people don't give them much credit because of the way the team was assembled, because you had three big-time players come together and say, hey, let's all go do this down in Miami. Do you take anything away from their championship run because of that?
Heck no. Of course I don't. I mean, you make the three straight finals and win two of them, you're doing something right. I don't care who you have on your team. Look, there's a lot of other teams that have talent that don't get as far as the Heat did, and they definitely don't do it 3 straight years. So I think anybody taking anything away from anyone on that team, whether it's LeBron, Wade, Bosh, or even Coach Eric Spoelstra, I think they need to have their head examined, because it's not easy to do in this league. And the way they did it, sacrificing their egos, putting all individual accolades and accomplishments aside, and going out there and competing for something that's greater than themselves, you gotta tip your cap to them. I mean, they did a heck of a job, and that's really what you really want to see out of guys at this level. I mean, that's just what basketball is all about. Sports in general.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. How much does D. Wade have left in the tank, do you think, Darnell? I mean, it seems like at times he seems like a shell of his old self, and at times he can turn on as he did earlier in the series, and just like he did last night. I want to say that was Game 4 that he turned it on and went for 30 last night. I thought he was outstanding on both ends of the floor when he was in there. I mean, with all the wear and tear on that body of D. Wade, now a 3-time NBA champion, how much more does he have left in him?
Every time we question him, he seems to come out and silence his critics. So I hesitate to say that he doesn't have much left, but, for all intents and purposes, it looks like the guy's playing on one leg. It looks like basically this NBA Finals series took his left knee from him. And I'm not sure he can recover and recoup, because he's not going to get better. He's 31 years old. He's on the downside of his career. He might have 2 years left in him in his prime if he was 100% healthy, didn't have so many nicks and knacks. But I don't think he's going to be able to get it back. And I think he's going to have to reinvent himself if he does find a way to have some success for long term in this league. He's going to have to learn how to shoot a lot better and post up more, because he can't just crash to the basket like he's been doing for the last 10 years.
Anyone you thought of, Dusty and I both agree, and it sounds like you do as well, that the Heat need to get some size in there and to compete with some of those other teams in the Eastern Conference. Is there anyone out there that you see that would fit well with that team that they may go after?
Well, it's easier said than done. I mean, who can you get, and who's out there, who fits what you need, and how much are they going to cost? I mean, you got LeBron and D. Wade already in basically max deals. I mean, I know they took a little less money, but it's essentially maximum contract. So who you're going to get and how much are they going to cost you? I just think it'll be tough for them to go out and get a big man because it just seems like it's so tough to get those guys. It is tough to get those guys, but two guys that could help. I mean, Greg Oden, you're already hearing his name being thrown out there, and maybe like a rehab project for the Heat. And then Jermaine O'Neal, he's a veteran guy who would come in and give you a little bit more toughness and interior presence down there. So those are two guys I'd keep my eye on.
What about this? I mean, is this scenario have any legs whatsoever? Because if the Lakers don't feel that they can bring back Dwight Howard, and if Dwight Howard wants to win championships, what if you did a sign and trade for Chris Bosh, who would fit more in with what the Lakers are trying to do, and send Dwight Howard down to Miami?
I couldn't see the Lakers doing business with the Miami Heat in those terms. Not for star players like that, just because the Lakers know that if they're trying to retool for this year and next year compete, then it makes no sense to try to help those guys out and give them a better player than Chris Bosh. So I couldn't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know. What about the deal that we've been hearing about with Boston and the Clippers, all that stuff, Doc Rivers possibly going to the Clippers, and then at a later date trying to bring in Kevin Garnett and possibly Paul Pierce. Do you think any of that stuff is going to work out?
I still think at the end of by the end of this offseason, by opening night, I feel like Kevin Garnett will be a Los Angeles Clipper. Doc Rivers sounds like he's kind of fed up with on-again, off-again negotiations and talks breaking down every other day, it seems like. So he might not go, but I think Kevin Garnett, at this point in his career, he pretty much knows Boston is not the place for him. I think he knows they're rebuilding, and you got a big potential gold mine right there out there in L.A. with Chris Paul. He has a home in Los Angeles, so I think Kevin Garnett will be a Los Angeles Clipper by opening night.
As far as for Thunder fans out there listening, hearing stuff like that, what does that do to the Western Conference? What does that do? Compare and contrast that L.A. Clippers team with a Kevin Garnett and without a DeAndre Jordan.
Well, it makes them better defensively. I mean, DeAndre Jordan blocks shots, and it's pretty when he swats shots up into the fifth row, but he's not a very good defender. So Kevin Garnett can come in and guard the pick and roll. He can come in and really just be a great team defender, and DeAndre Jordan is not that. So it makes them better, but still they need to basically surround Chris Paul with some additional pieces. I mean, Chris Paul and Kevin Garnett is not enough. I mean, maybe they can keep Blake Griffin, maybe not, but they still need to surround them with some help.
What about the Lakers? What do you see going on there? Dwight Howard, Kobe Bryant's going to be coming off the injury. Pau Gasol, they've been talking about they want to possibly deal him. What's the Lakers roster going to look like start of the season?
No, Kobe Bryant's probably not going to be healthy and on the active list. That's for sure. Even though he said he's shooting for opening day, that's an Achilles injury that's going to take a long time to heal. So I think Pau Gasol, that's the biggest question mark for me. What are they going to do with Pau Gasol? Is he going to be on that roster? And if not, what will they get for him? Whatever they do with him, I think that has the potential to really reach Lakers' immediate future and their long-term outlook as well. I think they can get some real good pieces back for Pau Gasol if they can find a willing partner to take on that money.
As we sit here today, Friday, June the 21st, NBA Finals just ended last night. As you look forward in the next season, with all these question marks throughout the NBA right now, nothing is a clear-cut picture of what's going to be come the start of next season. Who do you think right now, who's the favorite to win next year's NBA championship?
I'm sure you guys saw one of the sports betting books or whatever came out with with some early odds, and they had Miami as the early favorite and the Thunder right behind them. I disagree with that. I mean, Vegas, they know what they're doing, but I think the Thunder, because of the question marks the Heat has, because of Chris Bosh's uncertain future, I think the Thunder, you basically know what you're getting. Russell Westbrook will come back. He'll and by all accounts, be better than ever. Kevin Durant's going to be a man on a mission. Serge Ibaka, that contract kicking in, he feels like he has something to prove. I put the Thunder as my personal favorite.
So in your mind, then, if you're saying that today, obviously this is subject to change as we figure out free agency, the draft, and all that, and injuries, barring injuries. Anything less than a world championship for the Thunder is a disappointment to you next year? Underwhelming, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, that was the case this season. And I don't want to say it was the case last season, but it definitely was the case this season because, they got there last year. They had a disappointing finish against the Heat, losing 4 straight. Even though Russell Westbrook went down, it was still disappointing. It wasn't a bad season. The season wasn't a failure, but it was still a disappointment. And if they don't get back to the finals next year and win it all, I think you have to say again, it'd be a disappointment.
Interesting. Great stuff. As always, love talking with you. It's Undercover with NewsOK.com and the Oklahomans. Darnell Mayberry. Have a great weekend, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.